on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Quite chilling as well, the defendant's DNA is alleged to have been recovered from the hands of the victim.
Tonight on Politics Now, a journalist murdered, an elected official charged with the crime. We have team coverage as the 8 News Now investigators break down the case against the County Public Administrator Robert Tellis. Plus, Senate campaigns dial up the attacks. Republican Adam Laxalt goes after incumbent Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto on energy. She fires back on abortion. Plus, a declining Lake Mead will be the main topic during a lobbying trip to Washington, D.C. next week. The connection between our water and our business.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Thank you for joining us here on Politics Now. I'm John Langler. We start at the intersection of politics, journalism, and violent crime. Right now, Clark County Public Administrator Robert Tellis is in jail. He is accused of murdering longtime Las Vegas Review-Journal investigative reporter Jeff Gehrman, who wrote a series of articles critical of Tellis and his office. The 8 News Now investigators have the latest evidence in the case. We start our coverage with Vanessa Murphy at Tellis' first court appearance.
A judge pointing to evidence in this case like DNA, how investigative journalist Jeff Gehrman appears to have fought for his life, and how it appears Robert Tellis waited for him before the attack.
Quite chilling as well, the defendant's DNA is alleged to have been recovered from the hands of the victim.
Clark County Public Administrator Robert Tellis is being held without bail as he faces an open murder charge. The victim, longtime Review-Journal investigative journalist Jeff Gehrman, who exposed problems under the leadership of Tellis. In court Wednesday, Las Vegas Justice Court Judge Alana Lee Graham noting his shoes, hat, and vehicle matching video from the crime scene. His cell phone activity terminated before, during, and after the murder, and defensive wounds found on Gehrman. No comment from Tellis when we tried to talk to him Wednesday after he was questioned by police.
Did you commit this murder? Did you do this? Can you tell us anything?
A couple of hours later, when police tried arresting Tellis, he refused to come out, which led to a neighborhood lockdown. Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson says police needed a solid case, and DNA results were a key part. Was there any way he could be kept with police to avoid that barricade?
Not under the law. There are rules and laws in place which say that a person can be detained for a certain period of time. This was a very fluid, dynamic few hours.
A public defender tells me Tellis is hiring a private attorney. His next court date is set for Tuesday. Reporting at the Regional Justice Center in downtown Las Vegas, Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Again, Tellis is an elected official and he's keeping his job for now. However, if he bails out of jail, he is banned from government buildings. The public administrator's office has been closed most of the week. It was closed most of the week. In a statement, Clark County said the decision was made to no longer have staff in the public administrator's office report to Mr. Tellis, and this solution will be in place until the public elects a new public administrator in November. Clark County continues to cooperate with Metro Police on this active investigation. Tellis will not win in November. He lost the Democratic primary earlier in the summer. Tellis was defeated by the number 2 position in the public administrator's office, Rita Reed. She's facing off against Republican Patsy Brown in the general election. Her campaign manager told us that this murder has everyone, including Brown, on alert.
The concern of personal safety. And I know that's something that a lot of the employees of the public administrator's office, even the candidates who are also seeking office for public administrator, that's something that is going to resonate and be at the forefront of their mind.
Now, we reported last week Brown was arrested for driving under the influence. Her campaign team said she's been mourning her own father's loss and had an interview set up with Gehrman next week. A nonpartisan candidate, Tabitha Aldabaga, is also on the ballot. Jeff Gehrman's family released a statement this week. It reads in part, as you see on your screen, Jeff was committed to seeking justice for others and would appreciate the hard work by local police and journalists in pursuing his killer. We look forward to seeing justice done in this case. We also want to thank everyone for the outpouring of love, support, and recognition for Jeff and his life's work. You can find the full statement from his family and Clark County at 8newsnow.com. Garman's murder was immediately a high-profile case for Metro Police. Thursday, Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo and detectives zeroed in on how they found the suspect. We have 8 News Now investigator David Charnes here to tell us more about that part of the story. David.
Yeah, so right now, 45-year-old Robert Tellis is in the Clark County Detention Center on that murder charge. And as the investigators first reported this week, it was DNA that they found under Jeff Garman's fingernails that matched a sample taken from Rob Tellis early Wednesday morning.
Every murder is tragic, but the killing of a journalist is particularly troublesome.
Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo and Las Vegas Metro Police investigators say 45-year-old Robert Tellis quickly became a suspect in 69-year-old Jeff Garman's murder.
We knew that as an investigative reporter, he had written several articles, and there were different allegations and statements about potential people that would be upset about it.
Garman had published several articles about harassment and a possible affair in the public administrator's office. Detectives now say this video is Tellis walking to Garman's home on Friday, September 2nd. Sources say Tellis is accused of stabbing Garman 7 times in his neck and torso. Video then showed this car, later determined to be registered in Tellis's wife's name, parking in front of Garman's home after the murder.
We ultimately developed video evidence that showed that vehicle, the GMC Denali parked in front of Tellis's home, had departed around 9 a.m. in the morning on the day of the murder, and it returned around 12 p.m. just after the murder, which matched our timeline.
It wasn't until a day later, Saturday, that a neighbor found Garman's body in a side yard.
He was consensually interviewed, voluntarily interviewed. He had the opportunity to obtain an attorney. He chose not to, and subsequent termination of the interview, he was let go at that time.
Did you do this? Did you commit this murder?
Later in the afternoon, Tellis returned home. That prompted a 2-hour standoff with SWAT called in. Sources saying inside, Tellis harmed himself and may have attempted to take narcotics.
So is there going to be any look at not releasing a potential murder suspect back to his home like that?
We have a very professional and effective way of how we safely take people into custody in these types of very dynamic situations, and that was proven yesterday.
Something could have happened in that 2-hour window.
We wanted to provide a medical attention, which we were successful in doing so, and then we also wanted to make sure that we were consulting with our district attorney's office and ensuring a solid case to keep building evidence, and that's what we did successfully. Thank you.
Working to get information exactly what that law is. So the captain there also telling me it appears Garman was working on even more stories involving Tellis. It also appears from what we have seen the past couple days that Garman's own reporting may have actually helped police, John, now find his alleged killer, because he basically made himself his own suspect.
Yeah, and certainly we've seen on Tellis' social media pages in hindsight all of the tweets that he wrote against the reporting by Jeff Garman after the stories aired in the Review Journal. Let's talk about what Mr. Tellis was elected to do, run the public administrator's office. What does exactly the Clark County public administrator do?
Well, I think a lot of us didn't even know that this position was an elected position, you know, one of about 12 to 16 elected positions here in Clark County. So basically what the public administrator is that is the office. It's about 8 people, including the head, that handle probate. So if somebody dies and they don't have family there to be able to take over their estate, they will come in and they will basically hold on to those assets until someone else can, or they will take over if their family can't administer their estate.
And it's one of the smallest offices in
8 people or so
in Clark County, but still that office was the source of so many of Jeff Garman's recent stories in the Las Vegas Review Journal. Let's talk about what was included in his reporting.
Yeah, so a couple things there. He called the office an office in turmoil, and he had played video taken of Tellis that was in a car with a female employee. Others alleging from that video, it was an hour that they were sitting in that car, that this was an inappropriate relationship. Tellis and that woman told Garman that they were, quote, hugging in the car. The other stories involved employees who said there was a culture of bullying and favoritism in the office. There was enough that the county actually decided to bring in former county coroner Michael Murphy to try to tackle what was going on there. It seems to sort of be the old cohort versus new people who Tellis had brought in.
And obviously there were concerns raised. The reporting referenced in a complaint filed with Clark County, and as we were just saying, the staff were told essentially don't have to deal with Mr. Tellis Tellis even before all this went down.
Right, and we're working to get more information, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks more will come to light.
Right. David, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Other political news this week, Nevada Senator Jackie Rosen has been diagnosed with coronavirus. Her office says she has mild symptoms. She's vaccinated and fully boosted. Senator Rosen right now is working remotely while she waits for a negative test. Next on Politics Now, campaigns going strong. What Republican Senate candidate Adam Laxalt had to say about energy policy during a visit with former Energy Secretary Rick Perry. And Democrats continuing to hit Republicans on the abortion issue. We'll tell you what Senator Cortez Masto was saying about Laxalt's history on
Local now. Welcome back to Politics Now.
Former Energy Secretary Rick Perry visited Las Vegas this week. He supported Republican Senate candidate Adam Laxalt. It came as Las Vegas and California were asking people to conserve energy during our heat wave. The event was held at Rebel Oil and Gas. The pair criticized President Biden for using federal gas reserves to lower prices a few cents. They called it an election year Band-Aid.
For them to implement a series of policies to drive prices up the way they did, and then to use the reserve for political purposes to drive these down. And by the way, the timing is such that, it's going to go right up till the election that they're tapping into the strategic reserves. It's dangerous. Their policies put us in this position.
Once again, reporters at the Laxalt event, as has been commonplace, were not allowed to ask questions. The Cortez Masto campaign criticized Perry for being a fan of the Yucca Mountain nuclear waste dump. Laxalt pointed to his suing to stop it when he was Nevada Attorney General. Meanwhile, incumbent Democrat Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, she campaigned on a familiar theme this week, access to abortion. She and other Democrats held an event criticizing Laxalt's positions on that issue. AFL-CIO Executive Secretary Susie Martinez said in the past, Laxalt worked to prevent those procedures.
When he was Attorney General, he did everything that he could to restrict abortion access, signing onto abortion restrictions across the country that would allow states to ban abortion without exceptions for rape and for incest.
Laxalt accused her, the senator, of trying to change the subject and not focusing on high gas prices. This week, Governor Steve Sisolak attacked his Republican opponent on abortion. New ads say Sheriff Joe Lombardo, the Republican who's running for governor, sponsored a gala for the group Nevada Right to Life. Those ads also say that Mr. Lombardo has an endorsement from the national group. Lombardo has acknowledged Nevada law would prevent him from passing any type of ban on abortion before 24 weeks. Meanwhile, this week, Lombardo laid out his education policy. It called for a reinstituting of several measures put in place by former Governor Brian Sandoval, only to be repealed by Democrats. Sandoval, as you remember, was a Republican. That includes school choice or education savings accounts, ESAs. Another, Ready by 3. It holds students back in class if they can't read by 3rd grade, which studies show is really a pivotal point. Lombardo also wants to revoke a bill from the 2021 legislature that cut back the number of students expelled for violence in schools. Next week, the Las Vegas Chamber, the Vegas Chamber as it's called, is going to its annual lobbying trip in Washington, D.C. This trip has some new topics on the agenda like water and old ones like interstate highways. I spoke with CEO Mary Beth Seawald.
There has never been a more important time and never been more need for Nevada to have its voice heard on Capitol Hill. So the Vegas Chamber is taking the largest delegation ever to Washington, D.C. We have more than 200 people going. And it's really an opportunity just for all of us to not only talk with our local Nevada delegation, but also congressional members from across the country and to build camaraderie among the business community here.
What are some of the big issues we talk about so many times with the business community in Las Vegas that you think lawmakers in Washington need to know about?
Well, there are several, not the least of which is water. We've been talking a lot about water lately, conservation. You know, there are 7 states in the Colorado River Commission that are impacted. The water, it not only provides water to millions of households across the West, but also hydropower, hydroelectric power, and so forth. And so that's a topic that we really need to discuss with our Nevada congressional delegation and really explain to them, not that they don't already know, but it really gives us a louder voice when we have so many people to talk about how water truly impacts not only our daily lives, but economic development.
How does it affect economic development when if you're a business that's looking to set up shop somewhere, maybe you've been someplace else or you're starting from scratch? The impact of water has to play into the decisions that are made, the relationship with the chamber, and whether Las Vegas even looks appealing to that potential business creator.
Absolutely. Water is definitely a factor as businesses are looking to relocate here to Southern Nevada. We have to face it. We are in a drying climate. It's not just a drought. It is a drying climate. And that's okay. It's workable, but we have to know how to, what are some of the best solutions and ways to go about doing business in a place that is a drying climate. There are obviously things that we can't do that you would do in a wetter climate.
Another long-time issue for the Vegas Chamber that you and I have talked about many times, I-11, I-15 as well, but especially I-11. Both interstates are important, certainly, to Las Vegas. Where do things stand with trying to increase development, increase funding to try and expand I-11, first and foremost, and maybe widen I-15?
Absolutely. You know, we have gotten to a point, Nevada has completed our portion of I-11 to Arizona. As you know, Phoenix and Las Vegas are the only 2 major metropolitan cities that are not connected by a major freeway. And so we're working with our friends in Arizona, Department of Transportation, to continue that project. And then for I-15, as you know, you can pick a holiday weekend and it's kind of a parking lot. So it's really important that we've been working with the LVCVA as well to widen I-15. So that's at the top of our list as well.
And I'll have more with the Vegas Chamber next week on Good Day Las Vegas. Next on Politics Now, though, what was in those documents? The latest on the investigation into classified material found at Mar-a-Lago during a raid by the FBI. Plus, why the ACLU is suing the city of Las Vegas over Festivus. This is 8 News.
recovery.
You're watching Politics Now.
The Nevada ACLU is now suing to stop curfews in downtown Las Vegas. The curfew from the city of Las Vegas and Fremont Street Experience restricts access for anyone under 21 on weekend nights. Fremont Street Experience right now, the way they're doing this, there's a special use permit it has. It was granted in July for an event called Festivus. That's to justify the curfew. Well, it's in effect through November, but nothing's really going on. The ACLU argues there is no such event. It believes Fremont Street is a public square for First Amendment purposes, and 18-year-olds should be allowed. The Justice Department and President Donald Trump, they have to submit their choices for an independent party to review documents seized from Mar-a-Lago a month ago. The new report that says one document that was found there at Mar-a-Lago is about nuclear intelligence. The Washington Post also says some documents found were so closely guarded that many senior national security officials didn't have access to them themselves. A federal judge effectively halted parts of the Justice Department's investigation into former President Trump's handling of classified documents. Now the Justice Department is asking the judge to change that ruling, says it could do harm to the government and the public. Alex Limon joining us now from Washington to explain all of this. Alex, what's the DOJ's complaint here?
Well, the issue here is that with that ruling, the judge, like you said, has effectively halted the DOJ's investigation because by ruling that a special master should be appointed, that means that the DOJ essentially loses access to all of the documents that were seized from Mar-a-Lago, because what has to happen now is that that special master needs time to go through all of the documents and then decide whether any of them fall under client-attorney privilege, and if they do, then those are documents that the DOJ wouldn't have access to. And so what the DOJ is arguing here is that this time delay, it could take some time. So many documents were seized, it could jeopardize the entire investigation. And so the DOJ has gone back to the judge to ask for that judge to potentially change parts of this ruling.
The DOJ says it's conducting a two-part investigation on this. Can you tell us what are those two different parts and how are they impacted by this ruling?
Right. So the first part of the DOJ investigation is directly investigating whether Trump and his team broke any federal laws by removing these documents and moving them to Mar-a-Lago. Keep in mind, the DOJ has said many of these documents are top secret or even classified and should have never been taken to Mar-a-Lago. So one is that aspect of that criminal investigation. The other part of the investigation, the second part, is looking into whether U.S. national security was compromised because these documents were housed at Trump's office at Mar-a-Lago. It's a not secure, non-government location. There is a concern, the DOJ says, that this could have, jeopardized national security if people were walking in and out of that office. We don't know if any of them, were possibly just out. That is what they're investigating, trying to figure all that out. Now, the judge has said that the DOJ can continue looking into the second part of that investigation, the national security aspect of it. But the DOJ here argues that obviously the two issues are so intertwined. The reason why national security may have been compromised is because the documents were moved by Trump and his team, that it's pretty hard, if not impossible, to continue one part of the investigation without continuing the other. And so that's why the DOJ is going back to ask this judge to potentially change parts of this ruling, because they say this is such a time-sensitive matter as well.
Interesting stuff. Alex Simone from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on this issue says he doesn't have a comment. He's been following the investigation like the rest of us. Next on Politics Now, a Las Vegas man at the January 6th Capitol Hill riot is in federal court next week. We'll tell you what to expect on
is Masto, and I approve this message.
This week in What to Watch, January 6th pleas. One of the Las Vegas men involved, Ronald Sandlin, charged in that riot on Capitol Hill. He's expected to take a plea deal. He has admitted he was there. He's in jail in Washington right now. Also, we're going to have a longer interview with Republican Congressional District 1 candidate Mark Robertson. Hope for a debate. Not going to have that, but we'll have a chat anyway. We'll see you next week.